Hey, what's up, friends? Mike Myers here with the Songwriting for Guitar podcast, episode number 11, part 1 of my interview with the Bombpops. This episode, Jen Pop. In this episode, I'm going to talk to one of the founders, singer-guitarist Jen Pop. She's going to give her perspective on meeting Polly, co-founding the band, what songwriting looked like in the early days, and how her guitar playing has transformed over time. So here we go, episode number 11, part 1 of my interview with the Bombpops, Jen Pop.
My dad played guitar, not super seriously, but there was always a guitar around. And I just remember getting into music and wanting to play guitar. And it was convenient because my dad had a few guitars. And, so I started playing and taking some guitar lessons. And then coincidentally around the same time, like maybe a few weeks after I started playing guitar, I guess it must have been 12 when this happened. No, I don't know, 11 or 12. But I went to my first real concert, which was Blink-182 and Bad Religion opening for Blink-182.
Oh, damn. What year was that?
2001.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry, 2000.
2000. Okay.
May 11th, 2000. Like I always remember. 20 years ago. And so I remember wanting to play guitar, then taking lessons, and then going to my first concert and seeing that. And Blink-182 was my favorite band, of course, just knowing exactly in that moment, like, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to do that. So pretty distinct moment in time for me.
I love that because I think it's John Lennon. He said he was watching, like, growing up, the movies, and he saw like an Elvis movie, and Elvis was like playing and singing and people are screaming, and he was like, that's a good job.
Yeah,
I should do that. And I mean, when the same thing, like when especially that era that you talk about, like 2000, I remember listening to Blink-182 and being like, shit, they're really cool. They are really cool right now. And just like, I lowered my guitar down insanely low, the same thing as Tom, and tried to I tried to get through Dude Ranch and Enema of the State. Not well, but I was able to kind of get through it.
Well, I think it's like interesting because I started playing at that time. So to me, I was like, that's the only way I'm going to wear my guitar. It's like, so, and there's definitely, you develop a stance and you develop mic technique for singing live by how, whatever your rock stance is. And I've brought it up several notches since, but I still like to sling it relatively low. I don't know. It's just, there's such a statement in that to me. And I think you can get used to playing any way. It's funny when they teach you how to play guitar, it's like, oh, you hold, properly. I don't know. I had one teacher be like, if you're playing and you have your knee up like this, it's like the dorkiest thing ever. It's like, no, you don't, that's not how you play guitar. Please don't ever play guitar like that.
I remember I think it's like this one book is like classical, and it's this guy with like a turtleneck, and he has his arm up, and then he's got his seat, and it's just like, yeah, I don't think that's the way I want to play guitar. That is not how I want to play.
Yeah, and like your long fingernails on one hand, it's like how, I don't know. It's just that stance and that turtleneck and the long fingernails. I don't know. There's nothing more.
Then how did it feel taking private lessons? Like you have this one thing where you're listening to punk rock, and then suddenly was it a great experience, or was it like that kind of like, I'm doing this because I really want to learn the instrument, but this... no.
It was a mixture. I think I feel very fortunate that as a kid at that age, I was like, oh, I want to do this. I had a guitar. It's not like I had to go out and be like, oh, can I get a guitar? Or there was the guitar there. Then I went to the first concert, and I wasn't into a whole lot of sports, and I hated whatever, Girl Scouts and all that. And my mom hated taking me to all that stuff too. And I liked soccer. I was actually really great at soccer, but my mom didn't enjoy that whole shuffle at all. So she kind of was like, So when I got into wanted to do guitar lessons, she's like, that is great. I can do that. I can take, and she would take me there. And I always wanted her to stay there with me. And it was something, it's like kind of weird to talk about now, but I had several guitar teachers. The first one I had, he was so great, and he was young, he was cute. His name was Travis Travitsky or something, and he, was in college. And So that one I felt okay with, but over the course I went through a few teachers and they were always older, like old dudes. And I really wanted my mom there. I don't know. There was something about me not wanting to be alone in a room with like a guy, especially like an older guy. And one of my teachers, I got used to, he was a great teacher. There's nothing against him. I don't know. I just had that thing. And they was like, your mom can sit right outside the door. I was like, okay. But no. So yeah, the first guitar teacher I had, super cute and kind of had a crush on him. But at the same time, he said the same thing as the next guitar teacher I had. But it's just like, I just want to play Blink-182 and Green Day. And they're like, that's great. You can do that. But you don't get to do that first. Like first you need to know a few other things, And so I did do some classical guitar. I think I had 2 teachers at one point with that, and had a classical guitar class. So I was reading sheet music and playing with 3 other people. And it was like another guy my age and then 2 older guys. And that was cool. And then a teacher that was kind of teaching me like blues riffs and scales and stuff like that. And so, and I'm really thankful for that journey, that rather than some kid being like, yeah, here you go. This is how you play Josie. So they did make me learn quite a bit of guitar. And I think that made me a better player overall.
At what point did you go, okay, cool, now I need to be in a band and now I have to write songs?
So yeah, it's had an interesting journey with it because I'm fortunate for being that age and learning guitar, because I think you can learn how to do so many things at that age, which you don't have fear. You don't have like this thing of, oh, I'm doing it wrong, I'm messing up. I think you develop a lot of that later, and being more embarrassed. And so I spent a lot of time in my room playing guitar every day, just learning what they wanted me to learn, whether it was the classical guitar and the scales and whatever songs they were having me learn. But then when I reached high school, like freshman year, I still was taking guitar lessons. But like halfway through freshman year, I really got distracted with, social life and wanting to hang out and do other things. And I still always played guitar and I took lessons. But a couple of things happened, being distracted by having a social life, but also trying to play in bands with people. And it never really was a thing. I didn't know any other girls that played guitar. So I was kind of told, not told, but wanted to start bands with people in middle school and high school. And nobody really wanted to play with a girl. It was definitely a thing. I remember playing in one band in 8th grade, and we just covered like Pennywise songs. And we called ourselves Split Nation. And I'm still really good friends with one of the guys that was in that band. It wasn't really a band. And he's now in a band called Starving Wolves. And we've played with them. And it's really cool to see that he's still playing music. But, as soon as the singer couldn't stand and sing and play guitar at the same time. So I played guitar. As soon as he learned how to stand and play guitar and sing, they kicked me out.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a lot of that. So to answer your question, I didn't really start writing my own songs until like the end of senior year, and really after high school is when I got the urge to kind of really get back into, it's like, what am I doing? I'm going sing live bands every weekend. My whole life is listening to bands. I just need to be in a band, and I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to find people to play with.
Especially when it comes to punk rock, where there's certain like female friend bands that you were like I think of the Donnas, Tsunami Bomb. Were there certain ones that kind of inspired you a little bit?
So, that's a question that we get asked a lot. And there weren't. I definitely loved No Doubt in a sense that I love Tragic Kingdom. I just absolutely think Gwen Stefani is an icon, and I've always given like a nod to her style ever since I can first remember, being into having a style. But I never thought of them as an influence. And I also didn't avidly listen to No Doubt. So the answer is no. It's like, yes, the Distillers were a cool band to me, but I never actively listened to them. Neither Tsunami Bomb or Tilt, Donna's. I didn't. I just wanted to be in a band like Blink-182, Green Day, NoFX, Descendants, Bad Religion. Those were the bands. And it wasn't like it was a female fronted band or not. It's just like those were the bands that I liked. So I never saw it that way. And so when people ask that question, it's like, no, it really wasn't. It was just a person wanting to play guitar and liking this genre.
Yeah.
That kind of did it for me.
So you start writing songs. At what point do you start going out and playing shows? And it's like you start writing these songs, and how do you assemble a band?
Yeah, so I had started writing songs, my own songs, end of high school, that summer after high school. And I played with a few friends, but nothing really stuck. And really the first band I was ever in was the Bombpops. And Polly will probably tell you a very similar version. But I met her when there was a rehearsal studio / guitar lessons place. This guy had a studio. You could pay hourly to practice there. He also gave guitar lessons. So at that time, when I met Polly, she is 5 years younger than me. So she was taking guitar lessons. I was paying hourly with a few friends to jam in this room. And it was nothing serious, but that's when I met her. And I remember seeing her, and she was maybe one of the only other girls I ever saw play guitar. And she was so cute. She was playing a red Warlock, BC Rich Warlock guitar. And I'm like, what is this girl? And she must have been like 14 at the time. So then she had a band with the guitar teacher. So the guitar teacher had a band with the students, and he wrote all the songs, and it was 80s hair metal. Like he loved Cinderella. And
really?
So he had these songs that were like crazy to play. And they didn't have a bass player at one point, and I was always hanging around there. So he asked me if I would play bass, and I wasn't a bass player, but I just wanted to play in a band, So I played bass, and the songs were so technical and so difficult. It made me a really great player. And the way that those songs were written on bass were kind of like more like guitar. And she was playing guitar, and it was just, it really got both of our chops up. But after a while, I was not into the music at all. And there was some kind of like tension between the teacher and the people playing. And I took Polly aside and was like, hey, this is a song I wrote. Why don't we start a band like this? And she was way into it. And I gave her, I burned her some CDs she hadn't heard. A lot of the stuff that I was listening to at the time. Like I remember burning her a Millencolin CD and Thrice and AFI, No Use for a Name. And she just soaked it all up. And then she came back with the song. And so that's when we decided to just do our own thing.
I can't believe there was a guitar teacher that was assembling his own and being like, these are the songs I've written. Go forth. And it's just like almost like he's like, I'm assembling this army. It's like, no, play this more. And it's just crazy.
It was. He definitely was assembling his army, but he was really cool too. And he always like, this isn't going to be your guys' thing. You guys are going to go on and do your own things. He was actually really cool.
What was the band? Did he give it a band name?
Yeah, they were. when I joined, it was the Vodka Dolls.
Wow.
We were playing like dive bars, and keep in mind, Polly was barely 16. So I met her when she was first 14.
Yeah,
and that kind of was like perving on her because I was like, she's such a cute girl. Like I remember being like, I want to start a band with her, but I was at the time like 19. Like she's too young to hang out with. And I remember the day she rolled up in a truck, and I was like, oh, she's 16, she can drive now. Like now I'm gonna talk to that girl.
Oh my goodness. So at what point did you realize like, oh my God, we're collaborating and this feels really good? Like I think this could be a really good band.
It was immediately, like after I showed her the song that I wrote. I remember we were at band practice and we went in my car. I showed her the song that I wrote and she loved it. And then I gave her some CDs. And then the next week I met up with her and she had written a song and I loved her song. And we just started practicing those songs. And I think she did a lead over the song that I wrote and I did a lead over the song that she wrote. And it was instant. I'm pretty I know it was instant the moment that we showed each other our own songs. And so we would spend We spent about like 6 months writing songs together before we really started to get a band together. So her and I, it's just so weird because I was out of high school, but she was like freshman, sophomore at the time, I guess. And then she started to drive. And so I felt like I was still in high school. I'd go to her house or she'd come to my house and, we would smoke a lot of weed and, play guitar for hours. And it was really, really cool. I had never had that with anyone before in my life. And till this day, she's really, it's not till recently that I started writing and collaborating with other people, but Polly's like, her and I are ride or die songwriters together for sure.
That is so cool, especially that process for like 6 months where you just write. Like that's all you have to do. And that's where it's like, did you feel like with each song too, it was just like they were progressing? Like you guys were like, you were feeding off each other. You would see something she would do and be like, I need to do that. And it's almost like you guys were back and forth.
Yeah, we just developed our own language, I think, together. And we definitely developed the strumming pattern. And it wasn't until we started getting together with Neil, who is our bass player now, he'd be like, you guys have the weirdest, we would strum kind of like, I can't even explain it, but we had an interesting strumming pattern that we were locked into, her and I. It like seemed like it was a bit more work than we needed to be doing for playing punk. It's so hard to like explain without visually doing it. But, and that was just our thing. We've always been that. We've always had this like understanding of, you're playing this. Okay, well, cool. I'm going to try this thing. Then
you write these songs, you collaborate. Neil comes in. And then when is your first show? When is the Bombpops' very first show?
Well, so Neil, very sorry to take it back. Neil wasn't in the band till many years later after Polly and I started jamming. So taking it back to when Polly and I were, spent about 6 months writing songs together in our bedrooms, we decided to do our first show at her Battle of the Bands. So in high school, and which was so cool for me because I went to the Battle of the Bands at my high school every year and I never got to play. And I don't remember one girl playing in Battle of the Bands at my high school. So for me, again, it was like, oh man, I got to do this. It wasn't my high school, and I wasn't in high school, but I felt really fucking good to go out there and play that. And yeah, we won that Battle of the Bands. And then, so that was our first show. And that was the drummer he was a good friend of mine from high school, who I met him because he played a Battle of the Bands at my high school. And I remember I want to be like those guys' friends, So I introduced myself and then we were friends. We're still friends. So he was the original drummer of the Bombpops. And so he played that show with us. And then we just found a guy that I was in a recording arts class at community college and some guy played bass. And then we had several bass players since then. And that drummer was with us for a long time, but the lineup as we have it now, Neil and Josh, both together in the band around 2012.
I feel like that's the story of every band. It's like you find a bassist for a while. Do you play bass? Yeah, cool, you're in. And then suddenly, over time, you find the bassist that you need. Yeah. It's just like it evolves.
For us, it was. I think there's a lot of bands that I think if Polly and I had been like, you play bass and I play guitar, like I think it would have been, obviously we would have stuck together in that way, but we both really wanted to play guitar and I'm glad we both do,
And then eventually as you guys are starting to play shows, I feel like bands feel that there's, as something grows where it's like, oh, this is actually something that's more than just like this is taking off a little bit. When did you feel like this was starting to be really bigger than you realized?
Ever since we played the first Battle of the Bands, we then went on and played shows all the time. We never stopped playing shows. I think we were playing shows every week, at whatever dive bar or backyard thing or venue. We were playing all the time. So we were playing and we weren't great by any means, but it got us up on stage playing. So, I don't know. We always just felt like ever since that first show that it was, I don't know that feeling ever went away. Like, I think that feeling that was at that first show, we felt every time we played a show to some certain extent. Because I think we were both like, no, we're doing this. and our goal, like we had the goal to play open for no effects. Like that was our goal. It's like, and the long-term goal was always, let's be on Fat Records. And in a way, yeah, of course, when we opened up for Bad Religion very early on, that I remember being like, well, if nothing ever happens other than this, like this is the coolest thing we ever do, I can say that I did everything I wanted to do being in a band. But it just kept happening. So yeah, I don't know that there was a moment when like, this is when it's happening. Maybe in the last year when we wrote this record, I think that was the moment when we were like, oh shit, like we're going to fucking do so much rad shit now. And then we didn't do anything.
Well, yeah, pandemic right now aside, but you guys put out, like, how does the recording process, from the last record, think of subsequent records that you've done, you're playing. How did this time feel a little bit different?
Well, our basic process has always been this. Polly writes her songs. I write my songs. And when I say that, it might not be a finished song, but it's like I have the meat and potatoes of my lyrics, my story, my melody, my usually the key, but like very open to changing keys, but not. I come to a lot of the songs on this album to the table with more open as what's the vibe going to be. This is how it goes. I don't want to lose the melody. I really want to play this chord progression. This is the main thing, and I don't want to lose any of these lyrics. But if this needs to be a faster, like skate punk song, or is this more mid tempo? Is this an acoustic ballad? Like I'm kind of open. I left them purposely open and not married to how they were going. And I think Pauly did as well. Now I have like a natural thing where I feel like I kind of want this to be like a Rise Against style vibe, or something like that. Or this has a very trio vibe, like not to like ripping off any bands, but the pace, like some kind of delivery, or it's spacious. Maybe there's not much guitar on it and other things are driving it. So I think coming into that, being able to mold these songs so that we both wanted to make a record that was like diverse and had a flow.
I gotcha.
So if we're married to these idea of like, well, I have 2 skate punk songs and I've got all my songs are mid tempo, or like, well, I've got an acoustic, this has to be an acoustic ballad, we would run into conflicts. And I think that that's something that we learned together, being like, no, we need to make the best album. We need to do what's best for the song. And then there's more likely that your song is going to get on the album and my song is going to get on the album. And we wanted to like have an equal balance, but it's also been like, well, neither of us have been like, if someone's songs are more like Pauly present album or vice versa, we're not bummed. Like we just want to make the best album that we can. And, this one is completely equal in terms of that. That's why we worked with 2 producers on this album. So that was another reason why this album was a bit different in terms of one of the producers we worked with, Chris Fogel. He also worked on Fear of Missing Out, which was our first Fat Records release. This time we also brought in Yotam Ben Horan. And so we purposely didn't do a whole lot of jamming as a band with these songs before we went into the studio, because what happens is you kind of get married and you get demoitis. And people start writing their parts.
But it's true. The idea of like that people are like, no, that's not how it was done in the demo. Yeah. And it's like, it doesn't have to be the way that it was done in the demo.
And at that point, why have 2 producers, because, and so because we had before we started recording, we were in Denver at Black and Bloom, which is Chris Fogel's studio, where we also recorded Fear of Missing Out. And Yotam flew out with us. We had a whole week of pre-pro. And that was, we spent, the first maybe I think 2 to 3 days going over everything, and we came in there with like 18 songs.
Now, for the songwriting process for you, just before we move on, I'm curious, is it melody, or do you find it's a combination of melody and these words and lyrics that kind of form, like they start out as like not fully fledged words, but just like, I don't know, just like phrasing that you're like, this is what's kind of in my head, or is it like words?
For me, it's words. It's like, it is words that drive me to even pick up a guitar to write a song. And usually those words have a vibe attached to them in my mind. And then I'll pick up and, start playing a chord. And once I kind of like make that first initial thing, it stays in that area, like the first initial thing. Now it'll change. Like my melody will change. But yeah, the words, I can't get excited about writing a song. I can't even sit down to try to write a song if I don't have a vibe, not even vibe, like words. Now, a lot of times it'll start with a very small, like one phrase. Recently on Death in Venice Beach, I started with more than just a phrase, like, because I wrote a lot, like actually writing like down lyrics and not journaling, but just writing a bunch. And so, and when we were on tour, I did more writing than I have ever done on tour. And so this was a different process for me because I had pages and pages and pages of thoughts. And a lot of them are complete garbage or nonsense and are even hard to read back. But I would go through, read back, underline things that I liked, put them together, and then I'd be like, okay, I really like this. And I can still feel this thing, this phrase. And that's what I'm going to build a song off of. And so I sit down, and once I go off of that phrase or a group of phrases or a few lines, and then most of the time, if I have something I really love, writing a melody becomes really easy. And just it's like a compliment or to the lyrics. So, and that's really exciting. It's super exciting when I'm like, oh my gosh, I have these lyrics that I love. I've got just a little nugget. I can write a whole song based off of a little nugget, because then the rest of the story, and especially when you're in that space, I can see it everywhere. I can walk outside and see something and then be like, and then tie it in, maybe write the second verse because you're just so wrapped in it.
It's sometimes when you're writing a song too, it feels like someone described it as like an archaeologist, where it's like, I'm just like unearthing this thing and I don't know where it's coming from. Like I there's this little bit, but then over time, suddenly I see more of this, and it feels like it just happens.
Yeah, that's a great analogy because I totally have experienced that. And I experienced that a lot with the songs that I wrote for Death in Venice Beach and the ones that, were bits and pieces that didn't make it on the album. And, but they weren't just like developed enough. I still brought them in, and Polly had some that she still brought in. And I just think that they didn't get as much attention because there was a lot of them. We both had a lot of songs. Yeah. I love when I have that brain is turned on, because it's not turned on for me all of the time. And sometimes I think it's important to practice that muscle. Like I'll sit down and try to write or pull from stuff that I've written or journaled and pick up a guitar, and it just doesn't hit. And I don't force it too much. And what happens in those sessions, it's like a personal session. Instead, I just focus on playing the guitar and like experimenting with the guitar. And so
it's okay if a song ends up just being a song. Like its whole purpose was for you to just like, cool, I practiced writing a song. And that was it. That was the purpose. And
yeah, right. That's a funny thing, because I'm like, it's not a song if it wasn't good enough to like put it on the album. And it's like, you're totally right. And I that's a good reminder, because I think people who write or create really are harder on themselves than they need to be. And, writing that song led you to a different thing, right? Or
absolutely. I think we're always hard on ourselves, because, when someone else goes, hey, I wrote these songs, we go, dude, that's amazing. And then when we do it, we're just like, oh, fuck, I only wrote 30. They're not that good. It's just like, we would totally give the other person praise, but ourselves, we're just like, huh?
Yeah, we were so hard on ourselves. But yeah, I got excited really to talk about too. I have had so much growth since Death in Venice Beach was a lot of growth for me.
Yeah.
But also that record coming out on Friday, March 13th of 2020, and our tour and our record release show getting canceled the day that our album came out. I mean, our album came out the day that LA shut everything down. But I still had that brain turned on from Death in Venice Beach. And so I have played more guitar in this time than I have consistently consistently in a long time. I think actually since starting to like getting inspired to starting writing songs for Death and Vintage Speech was like the end, like January of 2019 really is when I just was like, oh, we're going to write a record. And like, I just felt it, like everything around me was inspiring. And it never really turned off. But my direction switched during quarantine. I started just really getting into playing around on the guitar in ways that I hadn't before. And that is playing, because all we can do is play acoustic. I would always write songs with power chords, you know, because that's like, oh, these are going to be Bombpops songs. So I'm going to write it, you know. And so now I've been like really going for just open chords and play. I never played with a capo before, ever, until COVID. And so now I'm just like, oh man, it's so fun. And like, I'm like addicted to this learning music in a way that, I mean, I don't feel like I've felt this way since I first started picking up the guitar. And I just bought a keyboard, and I've never played keyboard or piano.
Yeah.
But I understand through playing through, like I've been like transcribing a lot of Bombpop songs to play on all these live streams we've been doing. I have a Patreon where I play once a month a live acoustic set. And to keep that, like having enough material, I've been learning covers and also sharing my writing process on there of stuff that I've been writing, as well as transcribing like Bombpop songs so that they're acoustic and that I can play them, you know, with open chords. And that made me want to get a keyboard. It's like, oh man, I understand so much more about music by doing that. And like, now I want to play around with melodies, just a keyboard just to write, you know, just
for the sake of rediscovering your instrument. And when you throw a capo and you're like, capo isn't just a way to play open chords easier. It's like, I can do all these cool voicings suddenly. And it's just suddenly like, I'm playing the same, you know, I'm playing in the same key that I would do with power chords, but now I'm getting these different flavors from it. And it sounds different. It feels different. It's like,
different.
You get really excited about a song that you've done for a while, but you see it in a completely different direction. I think that suddenly opens the door to like your instrument, and you're like, holy shit. It's just like, you've been looking at a tree, but then suddenly you're like, I'm in a forest.
Right.
And you're like, God damn, and that's what's kind of cool about voicings. Like you can get into like things with like roots and thirds, and suddenly it's just like, this is real. And especially for what you're doing, as you said, to keep things and, you know, keep accumulating material, that this may end up affecting like certain how you write a little bit, and suddenly this pulls into different things, and that's where your songs just seem to get better because you've just been growing with your instrument.
It totally, and I feel it, and it's super exciting. And Polly and I have, we were all very quarantined for a long time, and Polly especially. I mean, I was, but Polly especially. She's type 1 diabetic, and you know, high risk. There's just no wanting, even if she got sick for just anything and had to go to the hospital. It's not good right now to have to go to the hospital. And she does have to go to the hospital sometimes because of her diabetes. So we were very aware of like not getting together, but we started to a couple months ago, and now we really are getting together every week to go over, like we want to do an acoustic live stream with songs, but I've been showing her a couple of things that I was doing, and then she's also playing Bombpops songs because she's done a lot of live streams too, and like differently. And we've had this discussion last time that we met up, which was last week, where you know, some of the songs off the new record, I've played them a bunch acoustic, and she's played them a bunch acoustic, but we haven't played them together, right? So I'm like, okay, when I play Dearly Departed on the live stream where it's just me, like I've got a thing down and it feels good. But when I play that acoustic version with her, it like almost doesn't give as much beef, because it's like we're more inclined to like play it the way that we would with the band, right? So we really dissected some stuff last week. We started with her song Double Arrows Down, and man, we got super moody with it. And it's like she's playing it you know, how she plays it with a band, and I put a capo on and my guitar, and it's like we just discovered this. Well, again, I'm just like discovering, like, well, if we put it here, we can do this, you know. Well, I can explain my process.
Well, I know what you're, but it's like it's how it feels. And if you guys are playing in two different voicings, especially if you're doing acoustic, like if one is like super low and boomy, and the other one is like a little bit higher, it's almost like your ear is getting different tones that you want to hear, and it's full and it sounds badass, and you're just like, shit, this is it.
Oh my God. Yeah. We had that discovery because we never really played a whole lot acoustic because we were touring so much. And the thing of like getting together and we would practice all the time. The whole time we've been a band, we've always practiced consistently. And so to get together to like practice acoustic has never been a like priority for us. And so, I mean, I think it kind of was like, hit up for acoustic shows and be like, yeah, no, like we got to practice for that because we don't do it, you know? So this is a perfect opportunity and it feels really nice because there's no pressure. It's not like we have an acoustic tour coming up or some crazy live stream we have to practice for. We're just doing it to do it. And in a way, it feels like how we were together when we first started writing songs, you know, because we're discovering guitar again together in a different way. And it's really fun. It's been really cool. Like I look forward to it every week.
Because it's just reignited what you felt before. And it's like, oh, it's almost just the reminder, like, yeah, it is pandemic, but like you're still in a band you enjoyed when you guys started. And guess what? It's still going to continue. It just evolves in different things that you guys get excited about. And it's voicings, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I like, we both got so stoked, particularly when we like worked on that last week. We're like, wow, this is cool. Like, because we thought, and we had been practicing, but it had kind of been like standard the way that the songs are written. And then once we did that, we're like, nope, let's take all these songs and let's do them. Let's like explore with them more because why not? We have time, and if we want to do this well, or do this, you know, maybe a few live streams and break it up. Like, let's make it awesome. Let's give these songs a different life. You know.
I love it. That's so cool. So what things do you guys have going on? So you got a couple live streams coming up?
Well, we don't have one, but we want to do like we have done like a few here and there, and they were pretty like frequent, like in the beginning of COVID, and we were even getting together. So she'd do songs, I do songs. Then we did a few things together. But no, so we don't have anything coming up, but we want to practice and we want to like do a full live stream with her and I acoustic, and where it's kind of like us together having a good time playing. And that's what we do. Like, that's what our live shows are like. You know, I think our personality and our friendship is able to transcend from the stage to the audience. Like, we want to project that. And so it'd be like a kind of like a hangout session with us, but we're going to play songs. And, so that's it. And then, you know, we were hosted, interviews and sort of emceeing some stuff at Weekend at Fatty's, which aired on Saturday. Sorry, I'm not sure when this show airs, but it aired on September 19th. And we also played a few acoustic songs, but that was one of the things where we barely practiced. And then we got together and we're like, okay, let's start like working on a real acoustic act for us, and because there's a lot of opportunities to do it. And so hopefully I think Fat Mike may or may not do another Weekend at Fatty's, but hopefully we can either play live with the full band or host or something. But like, again, to answer your question, we don't have anything.
But you have an album people can go buy.
We have an album. Yes, we have that. And one of the fun things that's about our band that we've done with this album and the previous album is making music videos. And we did 3 for the first 3 singles. So we're going to get back and make more music videos. That's a priority for us because that is kind of more fun and it's a lot of work, but playing like a full band live stream, I'm sure that we'll do one at some point, but we've all kind of agreed that we'd rather spend the time making more music videos because it's also another way to give these songs new life. There's a visual representation and there's a visual story to tell. And it might not be exactly what the song is about, but there's elements of it that are in there. And that's really fun for us. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Jen, thank you so much for talking about your process and just your new love of guitar. I think this is fucking awesome. The fact that you're getting into voicings and just that new approach, and just it should be inspiring to others when they feel kind of like stagnant with their instrument. They're like, I guess this is it. You just got, your voice just went from you were excited about the band, but when you were talking about like, oh my God, I've just like rediscovered my guitar is amazing.
That's why you hit me up for this podcast, I got really excited because that has been the most exciting thing for me musically during this time, is falling in love with the guitar in a whole nother way with acoustic guitar and my own understanding. And yeah, I got really excited to talk about that. So it was a perfect time to be on your podcast.
Well, thank you so much for doing this, because this was awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. I like to also use my guitar playing as a reward for myself. So at the end of the day, like working from home, you have to be organized and structured, and it's kind of hard to do. So I'm like, get up, do all my stuff, work. And then once I'm done working, like my reward is to be able to sit down and play guitar. So looking forward to it tonight. Yeah.
Jen was super sweet, and I absolutely loved hearing her story of discovering guitar again, being passionate about it because she was unlocking all these new things. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm a songwriting guitarist that just seems to write the same song over and over, I'm getting the same melodies. Well, guess what? You've got other melodies in your head. You just need to find the right voicings to unlock it. Just head on over to songwritingforguitar.com, scroll down, and hit the quick start guide button. I'm going to give you 4 super helpful voicings that will jumpstart your songwriting. That's all for this episode. Remember, part 2 of the Bombpops interview with Pauly Van Dam is coming out. This episode was edited and produced by Chris Fafalius. I'm Mike Myers. Until next time.